Hey gang, Ted Gravlin with the TEDcast for today. Yesterday, I'm following up today with one I did yesterday, and yesterday's topic was rules for salespeople, and it was 6 rules, and a couple of the rules had to do with how you figure out pricing for sales and how your salespeople are doing that. So I had some questions about that, and actually we're running a seminar on some business planning stuff tomorrow for free. So I'll show you a little bit more about what's going on with that. So the questions were along the lines of, how do I set the pricing and how am I going to do the price book and stuff like that? And what was I talking about when I say some companies are allowing salespeople to, number one, just make up prices in the field or give a different price other than what the published price is or whatever, and why that's a problem. So let's talk real quick about what goes on here and how you set pricing and really the only way to do it. So back swinging around quick. Oh, by the way, if you want to find yesterday's thing, you can either find it here in the Facebook groups wherever I left it, or you can go look me up on YouTube and look for my YouTube channel. It's in there because I put it in there yesterday. So you should subscribe to the YouTube channel anyway. There's a whole bunch of these little videos in there that are kind of cool. So Ted Gravlin, just find me on YouTube and subscribe. You can watch yesterday's and then whatever else we've seen up there. There's a bunch of them in there. So basically go back to how do we do the price books, and because it's an important first step, what you have to have in place if you're going to have salespeople, you have to have a way for you to be consistent so that you know that they're giving prices similar to the other guy and consistent with for every customer. And the only way to really do that is to have some kind of a published price book, and it's something you need to work out. And I know a lot of small company owners are used to the idea of like, I'm going to go to the house, I know my cost, I'm going to sit there and figure it out and tell them how much. And if it's really slow time, I might figure out a different price than not or whatever. And ultimately, that's not a great strategy because your customers get really upset if they find out that their neighbor paid less than they did for your stuff, or from a different guy who figured out the numbers because one of your selling techs did it or your sales guy did it different than the other guy. No. You got to get it consistent, mostly so that your guys don't give stuff away and quote people prices that are completely unsustainable for your business. So, accounting equation. 5 parts of the accounting equation. 4 of these things are moving targets. One of them is not. So we're going to use the one static target to use that information and data so that we can drive how our pricing works. Now when I say it's static, it's mostly static. The other ones move radically, and the last one that's static stays kind of there. It moves a little bit as you grow or as you might get seasonal changes and stuff, but it's pretty close to the only one that's not moving around as much. So what are they? Revenue. Revenue is the money coming in. Direct cost is the money it takes to do the jobs that you sold, so labor for field labor, equipment, permits, and stuff like that, crane costs and stuff like that, direct costs. Then we subtract that out, we get gross profit. Overhead is all the money you have to pay every month, whether anything happens or not, like phone bills, truck payments, leases, office staff, owner's salary if you're on salary instead of commission or whatever. By the way, sales commissions are up here in direct cost. And then, of course, subtract the overhead, you get net profit. So, revenue moves up and down all the time. You sell more stuff, sell less stuff, number moves. Because you sell more and less, the direct costs go up and down, okay? Because those two are moving, the gross profit goes up and down. Overhead pretty much stays the same. You can figure out, your overhead for April is pretty close to the same overhead you're going to have in May, with a few exceptions, like maybe some fuel costs or something like that you could make an argument that they're direct costs. But, most of the time it's not going to fluctuate by, 50% or something. It's going to be pretty close to the same number. So overhead's a constant, and so we're going to use that number to come up with how we set pricing. And I'm going to go over that in a lot more detail in the planning seminar. So if you want to sign up for that, I'll leave a link here. You can go ahead and click the link, and I'll take you to a place where you can enter your email address so I can send you the link for the Zoom call. It's a free seminar. I'm not charging anything for it. So just show up on Saturday, May 1st at noon Eastern. So we're going to talk about how we use overhead to drive our pricing systems and stuff. So let's talk about over here what happens when you do it in different scenarios. So let's just say a company has $20,000 in overhead. A lot of companies have some number like that. I'm just picking one out of thin air. That's a company with a few people in it. $20,000 in fixed overhead that happens every month, and you got to figure out how to cover that. So just to break even, we'll go with 3 pricing schemes here. Pricing scheme number 1. This is where you're trying to be the cheapest guy in the market, and this is what I see a lot. I don't know if it's necessarily cheapest in the market, but I see it a lot, where you see people saying something like, hey, I take my equipment cost, then I double it, and then I add in some labor rates and stuff, and pretty much you're down at, 5-6K or so for this kind of pricing. So when you're pricing with that, what has to happen in order to break even, to make no profit on net, no net, okay, in order to make a break even, you got to sell $64,000, and that's like 10 units at 6K to do that. And so, that's what has to happen in order, before you make $1 of profit to the bottom line, you got to sell 64K. Now, scenario number two is a contractor who's kind of looking around saying, hey, I got competitors in there. Some of the good guys in town are charging, $7,500, $8,500, and they kind of move their number up a little bit. Sometimes they don't even know why they're doing that. They just say the other guys are successful doing that number, so I'll do that too. They kind of match up with that. And they're starting to know their numbers a little bit better, and it works out better in their favor. So they only have to sell 5.3 units, so 5.5 or so units, 5 or 6 units, because it's 43K to break even. Why is that? Well, because if you're selling less units, then your direct cost goes down. You don't have to buy as many from the supplier, so it changes your numbers. So we're going to talk about in depth how to really understand these more in depth, because it's going to take a lot longer than I have today to do this. But break even is 43K, so about 5 units. Scenario number 3 is a guy who really knows his numbers. This is a guy who is actually figuring out, using the overhead, knowing how to project out forward, knowing what the costs are going to be, and saying, hey, I'd rather sell 3 units than 10 or 5. Because let's just say that every single company has, 50% close rate. It's a nice round number. This guy needs 20 leads. This guy needs 10. This guy needs 6. Who has the biggest marketing problem? This guy. He's got a big marketing problem. He needs the most customers, and he doesn't have any money. Okay? He's not making anything. So, ultimately, you can trip over 3 installs a month. Okay? That's easy to do for most companies. And you can break even. Now, you want to make 20% net? Here's where it gets scary. This guy over here has to sell $181,000 worth of stuff to make 20% on his money. That's 30 units. He needs 60 leads. That's really hard to do. You don't see too many super successful companies running at cheap prices for this reason. So he doesn't know his numbers, and he's spinning his wheels trying to do this. And what's weird is now he suddenly needs like 4 more trucks and 8 more employees and a lot more office staff and more square footage, and his overhead went up, and then the number gets even bigger. So it just keeps getting a vicious circle when you're doing it this way. So when you go over here, this guy can make 20% net off of 60K. He needs to sell like 6 units. So you might need, a dozen or so leads to run those, and he's already going to get 3 or 4 anyway, so he's only got to go find 5, 6, 8 more, and he can really run his business really well. So this is sort of how some of the numbers run, and I'm going to show you. I don't have time to show you right now on the board what's behind driving all these numbers. Why do we get from 64 to 181, and how does that happen, and how do we get from 64 to 38 and 181 to 60, and how does that work? And you can place yourself anywhere you want to on the spectrum. The idea behind the business planning seminar is, this was the question people asking, what's that all about? What are we going to learn in there? We're going to learn how to dig in so you actually understand these numbers, and you don't have to take my word for it anymore. You're like, get your own calculator and figure it all out. And I'm going to show you, I've got some spreadsheets we'll show you how to use, and you plug stuff in, like plug in your overheads, plug in the 20,000 number, and these numbers spit right out. So, but it's not enough to just have a spreadsheet. My belief is, if you're a business owner, you need to understand what the spreadsheet might be doing. Like, how is it getting to this bottom line? How is it applying in this equation? And how is it affecting your net profit? Because this is a 0 net profit. That's 20%. Okay. So you want to be shooting at this number or better. Not this one. I mean, this is the minimum number in any given month because you don't want to lose any money. But that's what's going on with that. So, hope that clarifies some stuff. You use your overhead to drive into your pricing so that you can say, I've got to make, if your overhead is 30%, and you might know what it is, or if you don't know what it is, but if it's say 30%, well then heck, and I know what that is for how many installs I'm going to do this month, and I know how many jobs I'm going to have to amortize that across. Then I know how much I have to charge for stuff to be able to sell it and make a good profit. And basically what we're doing is we're using this number to figure out what that number needs to be because we can't change the direct cost either. It's not, at least not by much. I mean, you can kind of negotiate and switch from one manufacturer to another. But once they tell you how much a condenser costs, there's not much you can do about it, okay? Once the overhead, once they tell you how much your insurance is going to be and how much fuel costs are going to be for trucks and how much a lease payment is, there's not much you can do about that other than get rid of some trucks or something. But it is what it is. The ones you have control over is you can control this revenue number. You use this one to figure out how much you're selling for, and it drives all the way to the bottom. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that again, noon Eastern, May 1st, Saturday. If you want to do that, click the link in your email, no charge, and we'll have a thing there. And I hope you like this, and we'll talk soon.